Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on the Profit Tool Belt podcast. Today, it's got a pretty interesting one here. I want to show you how to, if you're in commercial construction, how to estimate smarter and better and save on labor by just changing the way you approach things. So I've got an interview here with Jared Christman. He's from electri.org. Now, listen, if you're not in the electrical trades, don't hang up, don't stop listening. That's exactly why you should listen. See how other trades are dealing with this big issue. So we had a working title that we're going to talk about today. But what we're actually going to call this is Commercial Construction Estimates, How to Save on Labor by Working Smarter with Jared Christman. Let's get to it. Mr. Jared Christman, how are you?
I'm doing good, sir. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm so glad to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks. I like your background. That is funky. What is it? What's that called? Foreshadowing? This is what we're going to talk about today anyways?
Correct. So this is something I put up when I'm talking about BIM, just so that there is a kind of a visual of what it is BIM is. This is an electrical system. This is an electrical room.
Right.
This is showing all of your electrical conduit, but this is ultimately what we're going to talk about, right? BIM, what is BIM? How does it help? And basically just how it improves workflows across all trades, anything that has to do with construction.
Well, so people who are listening to this as a pod, they're walking their dog or they're on the treadmill or I don't know what they're doing, but they're not looking at the screen. If you want to see this pretty cool screen background, go to the YouTube channel to see this. But let me start here, Jared, by setting the stage, as people know I often do. Jared Christman, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these trades, contracting business owners all around the world?
Well, I'm glad that we've got 3 hours for the show because that's
well, I should have been more specific.
No, let me give you the quick version. So ultimately, I have spent 24, 25 years in the electrical industry in one form or fashion. Started by doing GIS work, which is basically mapping out utility lines across the country, basically going pole to pole and getting all the inventory. So what I want to mention there is that I'm in the field, right?
Yeah.
I'm hoofing it in the field. I'm walking around in the mud and the snow and all of that. But I'm also using a pin-based computer. I'm using a laser rangefinder. And this is like, mid 90s, to where we had ice packs behind them in the summer so they wouldn't overheat.
Yeah.
But it was like very early technology. And then from there, worked for an engineering company, worked for a MEP design firm, which I got into the BIM. That's where I started the BIM process. And that was really before BIM was a thing. I was literally using AutoCAD and AutoCAD's 3D mapping capabilities to draw these 3D objects. But again,
I have a question, sir. Can I ask a question? I feel like I'm in a class. Mr. Christman, what is BIM?
Okay. Well, BIM is building information modeling, and that is ultimately and that goes hand in hand with VDC, virtual design construction. That's basically building the model in 3D and virtual reality before boots are ever on the ground. That way we know what construction constraints, where the issues are, any kind of design issues, we solve them before the guys are trying to get the conduit installed.
Right. Yeah. And BIM, by the way, it doesn't just apply to electrical. Obviously, electrical uses it, MEP. And we should describe MEP as well for people who don't know that: mechanical, electrical, plumbing, etc.
Architect, structure, facilities maintenance, cabinetry. Yep. Facilities maintenance. Once the building's done, they utilize it. The maintenance department for the buildings.
That's right. Can we drill here? No, you cannot drill there.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But ultimately, all that led me to where I am now, which is I'm with Electri, who is the R&D arm of NECA, the National Electrical Contractors Association. And ultimately, I've used all of my experience from the field and incorporating technology into the field to where I go out and I teach electrical contractors new technology, how to use it, basically become a technology consultant for them. And Electri is an R&D arm of NECA, right? So we have research for, how to deal with COVID when COVID came out, how to bid jobs, how to deal with change orders. And we're a nonprofit. So all of this is free. All you got to do is go to electri.org, create an account, and boom, you have all this research
That's so
at your
cool.
fingertips.
Yeah. Well, the reason I tracked you down is to talk about efficiency and effectiveness, which is something we all worry about. Wasted efforts on the job site is one of the profit leaks that we need to chase in the construction trades. The repetitive movement, repetitive action, making mistakes that should have been caught in advance are things we worry about, because guess whose pocket it comes out of?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
It comes out of the owner's pocket. It comes out
That's
of our
exactly right.
pockets. Yeah.
And something, and one thing to go there is, where do the, if you increase productivity without increasing personnel, that's just more money in the contractor's pockets, right? Because they're able to increase productivity without having to spend that on personnel. So that's ultimately kind of where this whole BIM falls in. You can do more with less.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, the premise, we should tell everybody what our working title is today. Our
Sure.
working title is trades contractors. If I could save you 20% of your next job, would you be curious how? And I'm curious, how can BIM, how can investing in software, training my people, all that stuff, which is a cost, a new system, how can that actually help me save 20% on a job? Because it's significant. That 20% comes back to me. I want that money because I don't want to waste that money.
Sure. And there's, I could literally give you 50 examples of real life items in the field where I have seen this pay off.
Mm.
But because we don't have a 3-hour show, let me just fine tune on a couple of them. So let's say that you don't have BIM at this process, right? On this construction job, you don't have BIM. You've got ductwork that's running down a corridor.
Okay.
The ceiling is a 10-foot 6 ceiling. Ductwork is above there. You've got some sloped condensate lines. You've got a storm drain up there. You've got your conduit to feed your lights and your panels, all that, right?
Looks like the top of every Starbucks I've been to.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you get out there into the field. You don't have anything to go by. The electrician is trying to put his conduit up. Some of it's up high, some of it's down low. The ductwork's trying to get his stuff in. Now the slope guy, the guy who has the slope piping, is like, okay, where do I go? And everyone's trying to jam
fire suppression, everything.
Yeah, 5 pounds of stuff in a 2-pound bucket. So what we do in the BIM world, let's say you have this exact same scenario in the BIM, you're sitting there and you're trying to jam everything in, and you're like, look, this is not working. And this is before there's anybody on the job site. Hey, this is not working. We don't have enough room. Let's get the architect in here and let's show him. The architect comes into a meeting. He looks at it. He's like, look, this is where everyone is. After everyone's done, the fire protection, the fire sprinkler is below the ceiling. Mr. Architect, can we lower that ceiling instead of 10.6 to 10 foot? And then we're all set. Mr. Architect is like, absolutely, let's do it. No one has been in the field. There's no materials trying to be, adjusted and bent. And, it's all solved 3 months before anything ever happens.
Well, and you know where to core as well if you're running through solid walls, right? The coring, everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So interesting.
Yeah. And like I said, that's just one aspect. You start talking about hangers, all of your inserts and hangers. Well, with the BIM, you can coordinate all of that in the model, make sure they're not hitting anyone. And then with a little technology, like I'm going to use, for example, a Trimble, right? Mm-hmm. The total station, you can go out there and you can lay out your points that are accurate to within a 16th of an inch. And it takes one guy who can do it. And I've literally seen 800 points done in a day. Now, granted, that is like,
it's a big day.
Perfect conditions. Nothing's on the floor, but as an average, 600 is nothing, right? So 600 points in a day by one guy. You take 2 guys that are having to pull tape measures and chalk lines off of 2 column grids to get an intersection. Now you've got 2 people that can maybe do 200 points in a day.
Wow. So right there, that's a labor savings. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about hangers here. We're just talking about getting everything lined up to be in the right place at the right angles.
Yep.
That's fantastic. So that's where you start to see this actually start to make sense, and reducing labor costs, because it's hard to find people right now. It's hard to find good people. It's hard to find enough people. Mm-hmm. We want to sell extra jobs, but sometimes we don't bid on the next one because not sure I can finish this one on time. So
Mm-hmm.
we sort of choke ourselves. But you're saying that that's like 3 times the productivity, 200 versus 600.
Sure.
And I know you said you had a rock star that did 800 with perfect conditions, but regardless, I'd be interested if you said you took me from 200 to 250.
Yeah. No, this is literally, for people, and I know that the reason I know this is because I've dealt with this. People are like, no way. There's no way, right? You can have that kind of an impact on a job. You can. If you talk to anybody that you know in construction that is using a total station to lay out their points and using this BIM process, ask them. And they will absolutely tell you that bang for your buck, that is probably one of the most profitable technologies that can be implemented pretty quick. And it's pricey, right? It can be, right? $35,000, $40,000 for this piece of equipment.
Right.
But on a big job, you literally pay for that in labor savings on that job.
Well, yeah. I mean, if we just did that, if I know it's all theory, but this is actually how it works at the same time, is if I'm going to pay a guy 50 grand a year, or I'm going to buy this piece of equipment, which allows me to save a guy or to, redeploy somebody, there's the 35 to 40 grand right there.
Absolutely.
That
literally pays for itself on that job.
It's shuffling. It is shuffling money around, but that's how you start to get the ROIs. And let's be honest, Jared, we all like our toys.
Oh, absolutely.
This is another toy.
I tell you, when I got into the technology side of this, I was not sitting there going, I want to get into technology because I want to improve workflow. I was like, man, that is really cool. I want to play with it. And then I just kind of, fell in love with it.
Yeah.
But you brought up something.
No, sorry, go ahead. Go.
You brought up something interesting, right? About ROI. And it's like, it's hard, right? How do you apply ROI to technology, right? Like this iPad. How does this iPad make me money? And that iPad won't, right? The iPad does not make you money. You can't say, I'm going to put this iPad on this job and it's going to make me money. But what the iPad does do is it saves you money, right? It saves you money in that you're getting your prints delivered straight to your iPad instead of a hard copy. You're doing your reports on an iPad and sending it into the office through the cloud instead of having to email and take a picture of a timesheet. Right. So you're saving money, right? And saving money is the exact same as making money. One way or another, it's in your pocket.
Yeah.
So it's hard to justify ROI, but when you look at it like you're saving money, it's not.
Yeah. It's a combination of little things like that make you just that much more efficient, that much more, a smoother operation. I mean, you can just use Find My Device. If I've given you an iPad, I now know where that iPad is. And so I can see that you're still sitting at Panera Breads for 2 hours during lunch. Or I could see that you're already on the job if I needed to check that kind of thing,
Let's look at something that you would do once a week, right? Let's say you're submitting a timesheet. Your foreman is submitting a timesheet to the people in the office, right?
Yeah.
Let's say he's having to write it on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And that's really, let's go all the way back to old school, right? You're writing it on a piece of paper. You take a picture of it with your iPad or your phone. You send it to your office personnel. Your office personnel gets that. They have to input it into a timesheet, right? Well, you're doing it in an Excel and you just sync it to the cloud. All you do is you're using Excel and you're using Office 365. You edit it, you save it. They have a shared folder. They get it instantly. There is no take a picture. How many times 52 times, right? If it was weekly, 52 times you would have to go through that process. You apply 5 minutes times that 52 times for one guy and you multiply that times 4 guys. You can start to see how you take those other steps out and you're already improving process. Just something that simple.
Yeah. It's what's interesting about this is it's our job as business owners to solve problems for other people. Mm-hmm. Right. So you guys solve a problem that a commercial project has. They need electrical brought in. Well, that's the problem you solve. So you get paid for that. But the problems that we solve for ourselves are just as important. The problem of reporting, problem of consistent reporting, problem of getting people, the problem of wasted movement on the job site. So I don't know who this person was that did 800 points in a day, but imagine the efficiency of movement or just the purpose that they had to do that. When we talk to light manufacturing, there's something that comes up a lot called lean manufacturing. Now, exactly. And lean can work for everything. It's called Six Sigma or whatever, continuous improvement, CANI, or Kaizen. It's all the same kind of thing of talking about how to move more efficiently, not how to work harder, how to work smarter.
Mm-hmm.
But when you put those systems in place, you realize that every step your guy takes costs you money. In a shop environment like a sheet metal shop or a cabinet shop, we've calculated it down to a step costs
Mm-hmm.
$1.50.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. One of the things in the industry that we try to do, and this is, this is the lean side, is you try to keep eight hours of work within a 10-foot area. Right. So like your tool chest, your cart, everything, you
Yeah.
try to keep everything right there. And it's interesting because lean feeds right into prefab,
Mm.
and to prefabrication and kitting and getting, small areas of construction. You put everything you need in a bin, that bin goes into that room. And now you've got all of your in-wall roughing, you've got all your conduit, you've got everything in that room that's available in that one bin. Right. So, and where does that come from? You're going to get that accurate prefab from your BIM model because you've already modeled it. You know exactly what is in the wall. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny how it all kind of blends into each other. And in the digital world, it's funny because I just learned about this lean probably 7-8 years ago when I went from being self-employed to working with a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because the philosophy has always been the same, right? Even before I knew what lean was, I was trying to program in AutoLisp and in AutoCAD because if you do the exact same keystrokes 5 times in 30 minutes, how many
Yeah.
30 minutes are in a day? So basically, you can apply a cost to every time you put a finger on a keyboard.
Right.
Well, if I can deduct those keystrokes, then you're ultimately saving money. And
Yeah.
it's automation. It doesn't matter if it's manufacturing, construction, or programming. It's automation. Fewer clicks, you're saving money. Fewer clicks, less people. It all kind of goes hand in hand.
Is this better for this BIM, business information modeling?
Building.
Building information modeling. Can it be used on only on new, or can it be used on like retrofits or rebuilds for a property that doesn't have BIM in place already? It doesn't have this schematic of like the reason I commented on your background is because it's a schematic of an electrical installation in a commercial facility.
Mm-hmm.
What if I don't have that? Can I still use BIM?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, let's go back to technology, right? Because technology is our friend. Trimble has what's called an X7 scanner. Leica has them, Hilti has them. There's a bunch of companies that have them. But ultimately what it is it's a device you can stick in the middle of a building. So let's say you've got a renovation. They've gutted all the walls, they've demoed everything out, and it's ready for new construction to start.
Uh-huh.
Before you get that new construction on site, before you get those guys on site to start building, you would bring this scanner in, and it basically creates 200 million points in about 10 minutes. And you just set it in a room, you push a button, and it'll create a point cloud. Right. And then it gets you the existing information, you move it, and you basically point scan all of the building that's going to be renovated. Now you've got a 3D representation of what is actually existing. You bring that into your BIM model, and you either redraw on top of that, or you just keep that point cloud, you load it into your software, and you coordinate against that. Now you're still able to do exactly what's behind me, but in existing conditions.
Interesting. So it can be used in different, it sounds like if you had the systems and the wherewithal, you could do it for a residential remodel as well as a commercial.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing about technology, and especially nowadays, because it's technology is on the forefront of everything, right? Mm-hmm. Every year, you're getting more and faster technology. The great thing about it is that the only limitations you have really are what you put on yourself, right? You can find a piece of technology that was meant to do A, and then you're like, I can actually do B and C with it also, and there's still that out there, and there's still ways that you can, Google the Google machine always, right? Different ways to use blah. And then it can, just try, get your creative juices flowing and try to innovate with this technology. For innovators and for tinkerers, man, now is a great time.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much available out there when you combine this with 3D printing and all the opportunities that exist. But even pre-building some of your components, like pre-building your panel, mm-hmm. Your electrical panel or something like that, how much time would that save you on site to wheel that thing in and literally hang it on the wall? And I'm not just talking about electricians here. I'm talking about any trade. There's always ways, as you said, to pre-build or pre-kit something so that we save ourselves a chunk of time.
And not only that, but now you're with these with the BIM models and us working with the mechanical and the electricians working with the plumbers, we're able to actually prefab multi-trade. So we're able to say, you know what, Mr. Mechanical, this is where your ductwork is going to be. This is where your mechanical piping is going to be. The plumber knows where his stuff needs to be. I know where my conduit needs to be because of the BIM. Now we can all join forces in one shop and build it in a rack to where it's all pre-assembled as a 10-foot section of prefabrication, and it gets delivered on site as one piece. And now you're able to lift that whole piece up, all the trades into one piece, and snap it in. So now you're looking at saving how many points? You know, each one of those would have all these hangers and rods. Now with it, a pre-assembled rack, you've got, let's say 6, right? One on the each outside, one in the middle. Now, granted, there's a little more, you know, you've got to get structural loading and, you know, this kind of stuff. But look at the time savings.
I was just imagining if you turn that into a node, as an example, and let's say there's 6 nodes installed, you're now just installing 6 nodes, but you're saving on the scheduling. If this guy didn't show up, this guy's not here, this guy can't come till Tuesday, this guy's only here Thursday. Now you've got the node there. He can come when he wants and just tie into the mechanical guy can tie in where he needs to, the plumbing guy can tie into where he needs to, and the electrical.
Well, what happens is you have this node that goes up, then you have the one next to it that goes up, they join them together. Then you have the one next to it that goes up and they join it together. And you're literally, I have some.
You're talking about nodes altogether, not just the main points, but the connectors are.
The whole thing goes up as one piece, and then the next to it, the whole thing goes up, and then they join them together. So it's you know, I'll send you some pictures on email, and maybe you can throw these in the YouTube. But I'm doing a presentation on it, you know, on this multi-trade. I'm with a mechanical guy and a plumber, and we have examples of how this works and the time savings. I've got numbers on time savings, and it's crazy. It's like, you know, 600 feet a day that you can install with these pre-assembled racks. So it's substantial. You know, again, it takes a good job. You know, it takes the right job. It takes the right contractors, the right general contractor.
It's interesting because Jared, we've had guys on this show that specialize in, like, they'll get contracts to build a McDonald's. If they could modularize the build of that McDonald's.
Oh, absolutely.
And drop their construction time down from, let's say, 12 weeks to 6 weeks to whatever is reasonable. but still, you can always nibble at the edges, and you can find ways to be just a little bit faster, just a little bit smarter, and you're going to make up that money. And then you get the next McDonald's. And we know they're building a lot.
So let's look at, like, the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Googles. How do you think they get their stuff up so quick? They have a handful of design options. Each one of those, they have the same components that go into each one. And they're like, hey, we want kit A. And then they're going to send.
You're talking about for facilities, like for a new Amazon fulfillment warehouse.
For data centers, for warehouses, right. Everything that they do, it's all modularized. They know what pieces are going where. They know brands of equipment. They know everything about it. So these things, they come up quick. And really, apartments, hotels, you know, all of these places where you can use this modular fabrication, you know, the sky is the limit. It really is, you know. It's and again, the limits are what you put on yourself. You could have an electric room that is, you know, that can't be unique at all, right? But your processes and how you install and what you install are standardized. So it's at least taken out how am I going to mount it? What hardware am I going to use to mount it? You know, how am I going to get out of the panel into the first junction box? You know, all of that is. Those decisions are made already. You already know. Now it's just a matter of the little details, the nibbling around the edges, like you said.
How tech? Because not everybody's a techie. You're a tech guy. You love tech. You were installer in the field. You love tech, and now you're here at electri.org. How technical? You know, like, who do I have to hire at my company to make this come to life? Like, describe the person, like a base person, to help me bring that to life. If I'm not technical, or if I already know. I'm a business owner, I need to hire a person to make this happen. Can you paint that?
Depending on your company, and it's funny because I get asked this question quite a bit. Depending on your company's size, maybe don't look outside of your company. Look inside of your company. Find the guy, because this is one of the things. You've got to have the people.
That's crazy.
Right? You've got to have the right people. you've got to have your process, and then you bring the technology in. If you put technology in front of your people and your process, then that technology is going to have a very good chance of getting put in a closet because no one has time to do it. They're going to get frustrated with it. So you find the guy in your office who everyone goes to naturally to say, hey, can you fix my phone? Hey, I'm having a problem on my computer. Can you help me out with it? Yeah. You find that guy and you say, hey, the technology, right? Because you're obviously he's the one that everyone's going to, or he or she's the one everyone's going to. So that is the right people, right? That's the right person. He already knows your process because he's been in your company. Mm-hmm. And now he just needs to develop a workflow to bring in the technology. So I would say first look internal before you look outside your company. And a lot of the times it's going to be someone who is really good, right? It's going to be someone that's like, man, like I'm going to use an electrician for an example. It could be one of your best foremen. And it's going to be like, dang, that's going to hurt bringing him into the office. He's a rock star out there.
It's going to help. Or he's injured and we need to find
exactly.
a place. Yeah,
exactly. But let me ask you a question. How many jobs does that superstar foreman touch in a year out in the field? How many jobs would he touch in the office?
As a force multiplier. What a great way to look at it. Yeah.
He could touch one job in the field, but if he's in the office and he's working on 5 jobs in a year, now his expertise is being spread out. So again, that's the right person. Does he know the tech?
Jared, where my brain went to on that is somebody listening right now said, okay, now I finally figured out where Jeffrey, my son, my nephew, fits in the company. Because Jeffrey doesn't want to pull cable, but Jeffrey's a computer guy, but I'd love to have my son in the business, but how would he ever fit in our business? And so everybody takes their own message away from, especially when we have somebody like yourself in here. But the first thing that came to mind is now I finally found a place for my son, daughter, niece, nephew, whatever, injured foreman.
And 9 times out of 10, they're going to be so comfortable with the technology, because of their generation. If you're talking a younger generation, mid-20s, the guys that are like, get off your dang game and come to work, right? Well, if you give them the technology and teach them how to use it in construction, which is this whole thing that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
No one realizes how much technology is in construction right now. They still think of of construction as, in the
hammer
field,
nails.
Hammer nails in the trench. Well, what we try to tell people is, look, you've got drones, you've got VR, you've got AR, you've got iPads, you've got all this technology that's being used now, a huge workforce gap. Well, heck, let's grab the 19, 20-year-olds that are comfortable with this technology, and either they're in your office and you teach them, how to use that technology in your office, or you bring them in, you teach them your workflow process and let them develop the technology for you. And that's basically what is being labeled as a construction technologist, someone who knows construction, can implement technology with that construction and be that liaison from the office and the field.
So that if I was going to go look for somebody outside, and I know you told me not to do that, but I'm doing it, I would look for somebody who's a construction technologist.
Well, a lot of the time, that's a new term. That if you do a Google on construction technologist, you're not going to really find a whole lot, but you're going to find they're going to be the mid-20s guy, right? Yeah. Who's comfortable with technology, has work boots, probably spends his time in the field, comes home and watches Star Trek, that kind of guy. Yeah. But they're out there. They're absolutely out there. And, you just have to kind of be selective and find the right person. And then the hard part is once you find the right person, is keeping them, and that's what another piece of advice, this person that's coming in with this technology, they're going to fail, right? They're going to have failures along the process. They're going
to fail in like in a build. So there's going to be mistakes where that person's going to fail.
No. Well, the process could fail. Yeah. The person could cause the process to fail. Right. But what's going to happen is from the biggest failures, you get the biggest lessons learned.
Right.
Right. Don't hold the failure over their head. I had some miserable projects starting off because this was new. And I had a foreman call me and say, if I have one other, because we were sending out racks, right? Pre-assembled racks. He called me and said, hey, if I see another one of those racks come out on my job site, I'm going to come visit you. And so
it wasn't a polite visit.
Really,
wasn't dropping off cookies. Yeah.
He was very, very upset. But what happened is we took that, we changed our process. We listened to him. The next job he was on, he was asking us, hey, when are you going to start delivering those racks? So you've got to fail because you got to learn. So, when this guy fails, don't hold it over his head. Don't put a thumb on him. Let him learn from his failures. Now, if it happens again, maybe take a look at process, but let him fail because you're going to get some really good lessons learned out of some really bad failures.
Yeah. So interesting to look at this. So let's talk a little bit on you don't sell this stuff, but what's the investment to get into this look like? Like, let's use electrical contracting because electrical really well. And anybody in another industry, take this as a very rough, Jared and I are now having a beer. That's what we're doing. We're having a beer, talking about it over beer. Just what's it roughly going to cost technology wise and then person wise?
Okay. So let's start with your hardware, right? Let's say with your computer, you're not going to do this with a machine. You're not going to do this with a baseline desktop computer. This is going to be what I use is a gaming computer. I buy a good gaming computer with a good video card, good memory. You're going to spend, I don't know, let's say $2,000, right, on your computer. $2,000, sure. $2,500. They have those workstation options that you can get from wherever that are like $5,000-6,000. My opinion, don't just get a gaming computer. We've used them for years and years and years. They work great and they're interchangeable. Okay, so sure. $2,500. Yeah. Dual monitors. And I would say even dual 4Ks.
Oh my God, dual monitors, a game changer. Would you believe I now have 3? I have one monitor that's just for all my messaging apps and that thing lights up like a slot machine. Bing, bing, bing. It's going off all day. I don't gamble, but that's a good analogy. I cannot believe the game changer of having 2 monitors.
Well, it's a matter of saving clicks, right? We're talking about it. And with your modeling, you're going to have your drawing software and you're going to have your coordinating software. So you're going to have your Revit and you're going to have your Navisworks. So as you're drawing here, you export, you refresh, you see what you drew. So 2 monitors is minimal, is critical, right? So your 2 monitors, your software, the Autodesk software suite, it comes with like 7 different or 12 different Autodesk softwares. You can buy Revit by itself and you can buy Navisworks by yourself, which are the 2 main. But those 2 together, I think those run like $8,000 a year or something like that if you buy them independently. Yeah. Or you buy the kit, the whole set for, I think it's $3,000, $3,200 for the year. Oh, no way. And it comes with all kinds of 3D modeling and mapping. And it comes with this whole, it's called the AEC collection or AEC collection suite. And it comes with all of this stuff. And you can get it for $3,200 for a year or $7,500 for a 3-year. Okay, so that covers your hardware. Your Trimble, I think Trimble just came out with a new rental business plan to where you can it's like rent. They've always been able to rent it, but it's like it's yours. You get to keep it. You rent it, and you upgrade some kind of premier.
It's an evergreen rental where you're always renting it, but you can always upgrade.
Exactly. Okay. But you can also rent it by the day. That would cover the point cloud or the RTS, the scanner. I mean the Trimble station. So, and it's going to be $300-500 a day. But if you can get 800 points out of it, you're saving that money. So that covers those 2. Your person, right? Now that's tricky. That's going to be a tricky one. I want to say your average
$60K guy or an $80K guy. And I say guy, I don't mean guy, I mean person. But is it a $60K person, a $40K person, a $100K person?
That's a tough one. So typically what's going to happen is what I suggest is you're going to have one guy who's a software champion, right? He's going to be the Autodesk guy who doesn't know the trade. So he comes in, he knows the software, and you bring in someone who knows the trade and they work together, right? The trade guy tells him, sits in a chair next to him and says, draw this. This is code. This is why we do it. This is why we don't do it.
That won't work. Don't do that.
Exactly. And what happens is they learn from each other, right? The how I did it, right? The foreman came in teaching me everything. I was like, hey, you want to sit down? And then I'll show you how to do what I do. And we just kind of, I showed him how to do some of the software. He showed me how to the code and how to route. And he became one of our first people that we brought in from the field into the office.
Yeah.
And so, you're talking for the software guy. Sorry, I beat around the bush here. The software guy, I would say between 60, 75.
Yeah.
For the software guy. They can be someone out of college who they could be have an associate's degree out of a junior college that has taken AutoCAD classes.
I'm just laughing because you just described a bunch of people's sons, nieces, nephews, and daughters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's also Autodesk offers a training program that you can get certified as a certified Revit AutoCAD user. I think that costs like $700, $750.
Okay.
But it puts you through like a 3-weekend course. It's on weekends, 3 weekends, and you get certified. And it's going to get your foot in the door, right? And then you're going to learn from there. So, there's lots of options when it comes to that. So, the person...
It's not super expensive. Between the two of them, I just said $120K between the two of them. But that's rough. And, if you live in Wisconsin, it's different than if you live in New York, right?
Sure.
And then you said $500 a day for the Trimble.
Yeah, plus or minus.
Right. And then $3K a year for the software, $2,500, $3,000. You're in $3,000 for an awesome computer and 2 monitors.
Sure. That's reasonable. Yeah.
So it's the annual charge isn't that much, or the actual software and hardware is not that expensive. Maybe the Trimble is, but you're going to offset that against the job. So it's a variable cost against jobs anyway. But then your salary is, you're finding those 2 people.
And I'll tell you what. So when I was self-employed, what I did is I said, okay, this is what my hardware costs. This is what my software costs. This is all of my operating expenses. And I divided that out across the year and said, okay, every month I need to apply this much to this job for my overhead.
Right.
My computer every other year is an upgrade. So I would apply it every other year, and that way the jobs absorb the cost.
I'm so glad you said that. That's exactly what we do in business coaching as well, is just, we have to find the logic where the world is going to pay for our stuff.
Yep.
Right. So the next job's going to pay for this job. The next job's going to pay for and so when you made this investment, take that $120K, somebody just choked on their cereal. They're like, $120,000. I can't afford that. Well, you also said I could save a guy's labor. So for that $120,000, I got 2 people saving another person's labor in the field. You can start to see how that makes sense. And I have to add this. You have to see how in 5 years, you're not going to be able to ignore it.
Oh yeah. No, this is one of those things that, and it's funny because I use this analogy, and this is a true check your research analogy, right? If you look at like the milk industry, right? Let's just say the milk industry.
Sure.
And you look at your dairy farmers, right? And liquid milk. And they said, you know what? Milk is always going to be around. Great place to put your money and all that. Well, then they started coming up with soy milk and almond milk and blah, 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 all these different kinds of non-organic milk. So the liquid milk prices started falling, right? So some of the dairy farmers said, ooh, we see this. Let's adjust our business plan. They got into cheese and ice cream. The others didn't.
Right.
Yeah. So what happened is the number of dairy farmers decreased, but the number of cattle per farm increased because the ones that did survive were buying up the others. Right. So those that survived pivoted. They changed their business plan to get out of liquid milk, get into cheese and ice cream. Well, we're seeing the same thing with the contractors. The contractors that are old school that are saying, no, we are not going to adapt this technology. You're starting to see them fall so far behind, they're never going to be able to catch back up. And the ones that are adapting, and we're seeing these right now, these are the mid-30s guys whose parents are retiring. They're taking over their offices, are using the technology saying, hey, how can I buy this guy over here who is not using the technology? So we're seeing it happen,
So interesting. This is crazy. Yeah. And we've gone beyond electrical, by the way. Everybody listening is taking away their own piece of this, whether it's MEP, whether it's, I'm sure this would work for every trade, cabinetry, for framing to a certain extent, for cutting and coring.
Sure. Look, so let's look at ride shares, right? Taxis, there's never going to be competition for us, right? Well, then here comes Lyft and Uber, and boom, they take 85% of the market share, and taxis are now scrambling, trying to come up with their own app, trying to compete, but they never even realized they were behind. And so they were so far behind, they were having to to really scramble to catch up.
Yeah.
So I just try to, this technology is not going anywhere, right? They're not going to sit there and say, you know what, let's get rid of the iPads and go back to paper. It's just not going to happen. So you've got to learn to adapt and how to use this technology and how to develop workflows to really use this technology, or you're not, and you're going to find yourself on the sidelines.
Now you mentioned that, why don't we go to this part in a second, but you mentioned that at the website, electri.org, a lot of these, reports and papers are there to read up on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now not everybody listening is an electrician or in the electrical field, but tell us how we find that information again, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So electri.org, and then you're going to create an account. Once you create an account, there's going to be a search window that you can search your whatever type of research that you want to find. If you type in COVID, or you type in change orders, or you type in contract. And just to be clear, there are mechanical guys. Like I was talking to a mechanical guy at the last conference I was at who's using Electri, because the COVID isn't electrical specific. It's contractual, it's construction. It's, how do you implement, the COVID safety, on the job site. So it's not just electrical. Now, granted, it is, a lot of it is electrical, but change orders, that's everybody.
It's everybody. It's interesting that you say that. I deal a lot with guys that do architecture, millwork, and cabinetry, and some of the guys in that industry go look at the metal fabricating industry, because they're so thirsty for other, just again, nibbling at the edges. How can I get a little better? And what's another industry that's kind of like ours, but not totally like ours? And what are they talking about? And that, when you get that new kind of information filtering in, and really, when you get that attitude in the company, you start to realize the world's bigger than just the trade we think we're in. So I'd go check out that just to see what I could glean.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when coming from the electrical side, right, when all of this was starting, all of your Autodesk University classes, all of your videos were all based around mechanical. So I literally was going to all of these mechanical classes.
Oh, you were doing it yourself?
Absolutely. I would go to the there was nothing for electrical. So I would go to the mechanical classes and say, okay, what can I learn out of this? I would learn parameters. I would learn dynamo. I would learn all the tricks of the mechanical, and then say, okay, how can I apply that to electrical? There's not a big difference when it comes to software between a diffuser or a grill and a light. They're both ceiling objects. It's just a matter of what they look like.
Yeah.
But, between duct and conduit, some of that's a little more different, but the mentality is the same. So I literally, there was nothing there for electrical. That's how I learned.
You've been preparing for this position for a while.
It's funny because I tell people, that for me, especially where I am now, is like signing to a professional NFL team. I never knew that this is where I was going to be at, right? I didn't wake up one day going, this is what I want to do. But I have been in the electrical industry by accident my entire career, just sticking with electrical the whole way. And it's basically built me up for what I'm doing now, and being able to teach people and show people how to use technology and workflows. And if I can save someone, a failure or a headache or something, if I can just help their process out just a little, then I can take that away as a win. And, I did some good.
Well, keep doing shows like this, because when you share that kind of information to people, people that are open and willing to listen, I think there's probably more takeaways than you and I can even imagine in a show like this. I'm thinking about the human impact, where somebody listening said, oh, I finally found a place for my son, daughter, somebody to carve out a piece inside the company where we think we're a traditional X, but we could be more.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I could, reach out to a parent that was, and I'm going to be guilty of this, right? Of pushing their kids, hey, go to college, go to college, go to college. Hey, that's great for some kids. For some, it's not. Instead of go to college, go to a trade school, go get, learn the technology, go to be an electrician and learn how to use the technology in the electrical field. And, I had no idea that being an electrician, getting in there, going through the apprenticeship school, whatever. Yeah. And when you get out, you don't have a college debt, and you're making more than the college graduate in 4 years. Right. You're literally walking out of there making $100,000 a year, with no college debt. And it's not digging in the trenches and stuff like that. It's using new technology it's just I think the technology aspect gets overlooked a lot when
It
it comes
does.
to
Well, all of
construction.
construction gets overlooked because it's, and there are people that end up, I've had people say to me, because I ask, hey, how did you get started in this business? Well, when you're 17 and you got your girlfriend pregnant, you start drywalling. And that's now they're a drywaller. And that's,
Sure.
and they also stuck by and, raised a family, but they're like, now I'm a drywaller. So there are those situations, those things happen, but we're all guilty of saying, oh, my kid should go off and do this, software, be a doctor, be a pharmacist, be a
Mm-hmm.
teacher. But there are kids and there are people who want to work with their hands, who like seeing things come to life, who like tinkering and playing and making things happen. And
Yeah.
maybe that's
Yep.
where they'd be happier. We need to find them and support them to do it.
That's right. That's right. And I'll tell you, there's something to be said about driving through like where I live, San Antonio, and saying, "Oh, I did that building. I did that building. I did that building. I worked on this building over here."
Yeah.
It's like you feel like your DNA is in the city.
Yeah.
And that's the great part about construction. And especially if you're that type of person, you can go through, the people in construction can say, "You know what? I literally helped build this city." You know, how many other trades can say that?
Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. Well, Jared, if somebody wants to reach you, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but how do we find you in this big wide world?
Um, so my email, feel free, send me an email. And in the subject line, put the name of the show. So that way I know, who
Profit
it
Tool
is, because I
Belt.
get a lot of emails,
Yeah.
Profit Tool Belt.
Yeah.
And, but it's Jared, Jared Christman, Christman at electri, electri.org.
Right.
And
And
yeah,
then
I will absolutely respond back.
fantastic. And Electri, you mentioned before, is the R&D. It's the research arm of NICA.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
So
the academic and the like making things, new innovations and technology arm of the association.
that's right. The research is the white papers. The development is myself, and
Mm.
we have a future workforce development director who's working with college kids and getting them introduced to electrical contractors and working on the internships. And so we're the development side. But yeah, absolutely, we're like I said, we're nonprofit. We're here to help. That's what we do. So
I think you did it today.
I hope so. I hope someone walks away with just a little bit of thought seed growing and figuring out, like you said, they see they have their kid on an iPad. Hopefully they can be like, I bet he could put that in construction
Maybe
somewhere.
we could do that all day for good.
Yep.
All right, Jared, thank you very much for being on the show.
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity. It was an honor to be here.
Have a great day.
Thank you too.
Okay. Well, if you decided to log into today's episode and listen, congratulations. You just got smartified. There was some learnification today. That was so cool. Even if you're not going to do anything with it, think about the opportunities that have now just entered your head about what could pass. I really hope there's some people out there who thought, you know what, this is a good opportunity for somebody in my family to join the business the way we'd always dreamed if they, didn't want to be on the tools. Or if you've got that foreman or somebody else who's a really, really strong person on the team, but they're injured, yet they're also still technical, maybe we could repurpose them in the company and add value back in. There's so much here that Jared shared. It's just crazy. I don't even know where to start. I mean, there's just so much here about working smarter. That's what we're talking about today, is always looking for ways to move your company forward, working smarter, right? Having a way to reduce one person's worth of labor and increase the speed that we're finishing jobs, that's just got good news written all around it. If this is your first time entering into this kind of world of thinking about it, that's great. If you're already halfway down it and this nudged you along further, that's great too. That's what I'm here to do. My job as a business coach is to change the way you think, change the way you act and react when you see opportunities and threats and bottlenecks in the world. So if any of those things happened, then I'm going to call today a win. And Jared did a great job on today's episode. Stay tuned. The next piece of the show is questions and answers with Dom. let's see what we've got and let's see what answer I give. We'll see you there. Hey, today's question on Questions and Answers with Dom comes to us via Contractor Strategy Group. I want to say thanks to Alan and Randy for answering a couple versions of this question that's floating around in the Contractor Strategy Group, and it's about financing for clients. Do you offer financing for clients, and why would I if I'm focusing on more affluent clients who don't need financing? Let's see. I'm going to answer that question right here, right now. Well, I want to give a big thanks to Alan and Randy. Hey, if you want to ask a question as well, go to speakpipe.com/ask Dom, and you can leave a question that I will answer here on the show as well. The question, of course, that we're answering now is financing for customers, big question mark. Do I offer it, and why the heck would I? Well, you probably already know my answer. I'm sure you can tell. You can smell it in the air. I believe you should. And here's a couple of reasons for. First, why offer financing? Because any well-qualified sale in any industry, it doesn't matter what we're selling, we always understand where that money's coming from. There always has to be a budget for that, right? I need to know about the money. There are 4 critical elements to making any sale. One of them is budget. So I need to know the money. The other one is need. Why do you need to buy what product or service I'm selling? Timing. Why now? And relationship. Why me? And then there's always some technical questions that drag along as well. Technical being how high a fence can you make? What kind of paint do you use? Another technical question about a builder is, do you understand the permit process in this area? There's always some technical questions. But I'll tell you what, the core elements are always budget, need, timing, and relationship. And I have to understand budget. If I don't understand where my customer gets their money, then I can't make a sale when the time gets crunchy and I need to make some sales, if you know what I mean. A couple of weeks ago, we had an episode completely on having a recession-proof construction business plan. Now, by the way, you can download that or ask for the download. Just text me at 604-837-8361 and just say the word business plan, and then I'll know to send you that one-page, very, 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 very simple business plan. It's laid out as a quadrant. Anyways, now you're going to say, but Dom, my customers are different. You don't understand. You just don't get it, Rubino. Well, you're right. I don't. But let me assume that I know a little bit about the kind of customers. You're going to say, well, Dom, they have a Land Rover. And then I'm going to ask, well, did they finance that Land Rover? Or did they buy it for cash? And if they bought it for cash, then congratulations. You found the vertical market of drug dealers, which could be okay, I guess, but probably dangerous. Hey, they have a Rolex. Did they buy it for cash or did they put it on their Amex or their Visa, right? How did they pay for it is always a question we need to know, right? Did they mortgage their house? Did they mortgage their cottage? Did they mortgage their condo in Florida, their cottage in the mountains? We can't go around thinking there's this magic box of money that they pull money out of. They're having these discussions in the background. And if I want to be a solution provider, a professional business person who just happens to run a contracting business, I have to understand the flow of the money. And the flow of the money knows, did I get the money from my in-laws? Did I get the money from a line of credit? Did I get the money from financing? Now, financing takes different versions. We've got listeners here from all across the world. Obviously, the bulk of the listeners are from America. We've got some from Canada. We've got some from Australia, New Zealand, and then Europe. Financing rules are different in all those countries, and financing options are different in all those countries. But you're going to have to go get that in place because and it's a big if there is something happening in the economy to make it either go up, that's not what the media is saying right now, or down, we're hearing a lot about that, then you and I need to have options. Option number 1, to keep our business going, options to take a payment. If I've finished a job and a customer says, will you take a check? I'm going to take that check. If they say, will you take Visa? I'm going to try and get the Visa processing fee back, but yes, I'm going to take the Visa. Take the payment any way your customer is willing to pay you. Get that money into this company because your company needs that money to breathe, right? Have options for people. They can say no if you have it, but they can't say no if you don't even offer it, right? At least they can say no. I'd rather be in a position in anything where I have it, but I don't need it instead of needing it and not having it, because it's going to take, even if it's super easy to set up an account, it's going to take you 2 weeks. Doesn't matter what the financial institution is. There's the back and forth, this information, how does it work, loading it here, doing all that. Well, you need to have that ready when you've got a deal pending that makes the difference between making payroll based on that deal And so you guys can kind of see where I'm going on this one. Financing, do you need it? I think you do. Does it mean you're going to use it? I don't know. But the first time you do, please send me a text message, 604-837-8361, and say, Dom, I just used financing. You're right, it worked. Or if you want to talk more about this with other business professionals and business coaches, our coaching program is called 10X Built. And you can find out more about that by going to the website, www.10xblt.com. And on there, you can find out how to apply to work with our team if you think now is the right time to grow your company. Let's talk about it then. Thanks, folks.